So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to yet another episode of Happiness is a Muscle. You have clicked the right link and you are in the right place because we have two fabulous minds with us. We have Vivek Bhargava, our main man, and today we have Kavin Jay in the house.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up? So let me quickly introduce to you our guest for today, which is Kavin. Kavin is a stand-up comic. You would have seen his special. Everybody calm down. If you haven't, you should go check it out. It is on Netflix. He's also planning a part two and a lot of other exciting things. He's traveled all over the world, performed in Edinburgh Festival and Perth Festival. And if you're ever in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, if there's an open mic happening, you will see a lot of guys who are inspired by him, who are trying out stand-up comic. So that's Kavin J for you. Kavin, a warm welcome. And this is perhaps nothing like you would have ever been in a conversation before, because we are not going to talk about your stand-up journey. We are not going to, dive into your jokes, but we are going to dive into a lot more other things that help you bring up that joke so beautifully on the stage. And our main man, Mr. Vivek Bhargava, is here. For the guys who do not know, he's an angel investor. He is the pioneer of digital marketing in India. He started in the year 1997. And he also nurtures a dream of India winning an Olympic medal in table tennis with his own academy. So please give it up for Mr. Vivek Bhargava. Super. So I'm going to get off this conversation. I'm going to allow you two great minds to be a part of it, but I'll come back in the end with my questions, with my doubts to both of you, because, we have a lot of questions.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot, Vaibhav. So, Kavin, let me just give you a little context of this interview and what we're attempting to do, right? So, basically what happened was that I grew up in a very middle-class kind of family, and the only goal you have is to make money. Luckily, some Japanese came and bought my company, so I made some money. And I thought that now I've got the silver bullet, everything is hunky-dory. We have this word in India called jingalala, which basically means it's going to be, life is going to be jingalala, right? As luck would have it, for 9 months down that road, I found myself in a hospital. My father, who was very close to me, was on the ventilator. And suddenly it just made me realize how helpless I was and how money didn't mean much when somebody close to you is in the hospital. And basically what happened was that I had to now find a new quest for my life, that how should I now plan my life, because my only goal in life was to make money. And then now there is, in my mind, I had adequate money with me. And now what do I do? So I thought to myself, okay, you know what, I'm going to write a new goal. In that 8-10 nights of introspection in the hospital, I wrote down this goal that I want to increase my happiness every minute, every hour for the rest of my life. So I said that, okay, let's make that as a goal. And that should be my objective. So then I started reading books. I read about 30-40 books on happiness. I saw every single TED talk on happiness. And one thing that I found extremely ironic in all these talks were that every talk talked about these physical things that you can do to increase your happiness. So you meditate, you show generosity, you be grateful, you sleep better, you eat better, you exercise, you'll be happier, right? And I found that whole thinking very shallow, because it releases certain chemicals, gives you some pleasure, increases your happiness temporarily, but doesn't increase it on a sustainable basis. Then I started talking to people who were successful, who I felt were at peace with themselves. They had a purpose in life, and every single one of them had a mental model. And following that mental model allowed them to become happier and sustain happiness. So I said, you know what, now I think I have this framework that people have to do the physical activities of becoming happier. So sleep and exercise and be grateful, etc. They also need to have mental models. And then mental models will allow them to sustain happiness. So it's almost like, Jim Collins wrote this book called Good to Great, when he talks about this flywheel, where one improves the other. Before this conversation, we're talking about Apple. So it's like iTunes increases the sales of iPhones and iPhones increases the sales of iTunes, right? So you create this thing. So Happiness is a Muscle is a book which is creating this framework, a flywheel between actions, which are sleep, exercise, etc., and framework and mental models which are beliefs. So I have certain beliefs about money. I have certain beliefs about how do you trust people. I have certain beliefs about how do you learn things. What kind of purpose did you find in your life? So what we're going to do in this interview is just have a discussion on your mental models on
Okay.
some of these things. And I feel that most of the audience will learn from the mental models of how they can sustain happiness. So let me start
Right.
off with the first thing. How did you find your calling in becoming a stand-up comic, right? Because a lot of people focus on creating money and wealth, and
Mm-hmm.
let's be honest, right? There are slightly more money making professions than being a stand-up comic. So would love
Yes.
to hear your thoughts of how did you get into it, and was it based on following joy and happiness, or was it something that you felt it was probably going to help you get more girls? Because that was my reason to attempt stand-up comedy.
No, but that, I mean, helping get girls, there was something that when I was young. Yes, it was a part of it, but it wasn't because of that. And a lot of people would say that, oh no, because of money, you wanna make money, therefore you go to comedy. Trust me, there's no money in comedy, especially now. It's so difficult. But how I stumbled into comedy was was sort of like, so my brother and I, we were only two boys in the family, and I used to joke around a lot. Like I hang out with his friends, I make them laugh. I hang out with my friends, I make them laugh. I make my family laugh, and he always looked at me and said, "Look, you should do something with this, right? This is something you can." Use in your. And I was always, when I was young, I was like 21, 22. I was like, oh, there's so much more time for that. There's always time to do things that you want to do. There's always time. Like, you will do it tomorrow, or you'll do it next week, or you'll do it next month, or you'll do it next year. Let's just enjoy life now, and then think of doing something that you want to do later on in life, because you're 21, you're 22, you're doing things that you just, you got a lot of money, you do this and that. I was an engineer, by the way. I was a marine engineer, and I was making a lot of money at that time as a professional, right? In oil and gas. And what happened was, my brother then passed away 2 weeks before his 30th birthday, right? He had a heart attack, and nobody saw it coming. Like, we even, me and my brother, we spoke about going to the hospital, getting a medical checkup done, because nobody gets a medical checkup before they're 30, right? And so he said, look, I'm turning 30 next month. At that time when we had conversation, I'm turning 30 next month. So after my birthday, I will go for a medical checkup, and we'll see what happens, right? But 2 weeks before his birthday happens, that he passed away. And it hit me very hard, as in the fact that it made me realize that life was too short to say, I do it tomorrow, or there's something I want to do, but I'll put it, I'll just, I can do it next year, I can do it next month. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to do this, this is something that he wanted me to do. I wanted to do it as well. It's not only the fact that my brother wanted me to do it, but I thought maybe, this could be something that I wanted to do. And I got 150 of my friends. I put them in a pub, and I told jokes. And I did very badly, because I didn't know what I was doing. And there was no open mic scene in Malaysia at that time. This was 2006. There was no open mic scene in Malaysia. There was no there was nobody I could look up to say, hey, can you teach me how to do stand-up comedy? It was basically just, watch some YouTube videos and good luck, best of luck. So I went on stage, and I thought, swearing as much as possible would possibly make the crowd laugh. It didn't. And I embarrassed myself in front of my family and friends. And that's when, I thought, okay, that finish, enough, go move on with my life. The week after that, another friend called me and said, hey, there's this, another open mic show that they're doing. It's an open mic, so anybody can go, singer, dancer, whatever you want, right? So he said, why don't you do stand-up comedy? And I'm like, no, I'm not good at it. And he said, just dude, just try. What's the worst that can happen? So I thought to myself, okay, fine, you know. So I went to this open mic and I did stand up again, and I did slightly better, right? And I thought to myself, like, it wasn't still wasn't good, but it was slightly better. And I thought to myself, like, oh, if I did it once, it was bad. If I did it another time, it's slightly better. So what happens if I do it 400 times? Will I be 400 times better? So I thought, okay, let's try a few more times and see what happens. So then, you know, I had a friend who was running a bar at that time. I told him, look, I'm just going to come to your bar. I'm going to get up on stage and I'm going to tell jokes to your regulars on a Tuesday night, and they're going to be obviously, you know, at 8 o'clock in the evening when they are completely drunk. They're not going to get my jokes, right? So I thought, you know what, let's just do it. What's the worst that can happen? And I kept doing that. I kept doing that week after week after week, and I realized that I was getting better and better and better and better. And that's when, you know, basically the career took me away from, you know, doing stand up. Just basically, I, without realizing, I was an engineer and a stand up comedian on the side, right? Slowly became a stand up comedian and an engineer on the side. And here we are now after, you know, 14 years of doing stand up comedy. I'm talking to you now.
Wow. So, Kevin, one of the things that I've seen is that there's one of the things that I've written in my book. I have this concept called learnability, where you
Right.
learn more and more things, and learning those things makes you a better you in your primary profession. So, I actually have attempted learning stand-up comedy. I've done 2 open mics. I've learned a little bit of mentalism. I've done speed reading. I do paragliding. I do table tennis. I've done news anchoring courses. So every few months, I'll do some course, and I feel that doing everything makes me a better me. So stand-up whatever I learned in stand-up comic, it allowed me to become a better speaker because I can make people laugh a little bit more. Mentalism increases my recall value. I'm a sales guy, so people remember me if I've guessed their password. So I have this philosophy. So I wanted to ask you, working as a marine engineer and your engineering, all that, has it helped you become a better stand-up comic? Because learning new things makes us a better us. So that I wanted to test and hear your views. Has that been true in your life, where you learn new things and those things have made you a better stand-up comic, whether it's your
Okay.
travel, whether it's marine engineering, anything?
No, yes, definitely. I mean, I don't know about the engineering itself. Like, you know, okay, I know how to fix a pump, but that's not going to go into my stand-up comedy. But however, the journey of me getting to become a stand-up comedian, because I had to travel alone at 17 years old. I traveled to England to study alone, right? This was a 17-year-old boy who basically, you know, and let's face it, we are very, very dependent on our parents to cook food, to wash our clothes, you know, to everything. Sometimes even our mother's dresses, right? And this is me, 17 years old, moving to a new country. I was excited. I was so excited because I was getting away from my parents. But however, I went there and I experienced new things in England. And then, you know, as my job, I got to travel around the world because I worked on a ship. So I traveled, you know, I circumnavigated the globe. You know, I went to the North Pole, the South Pole, not exactly the South Pole, but, you know, the Arctics. But, you know, I've been through these places and I've been through these adventures, I would call it. And, you know, a lot of those stories that I tell on stand-up comedy is basically part of my experiences when I when I go through them. And yes, being an engineer or marine engineer, I would say my journey to become that marine engineer has helped tremendously, because if I was a sheltered little boy, who stayed in Kuala Lumpur and never went out, and started comedy when I was 18 years old, I always think to myself, like, I started comedy when I was 26, right? And to be fair, a lot of people would say that, oh no, that's too old for you to become a comedian, or that's too old for you to do certain things. That's too old for you to become an actor, for instance. And I always think to myself, like, yeah, I should have started when I was 18. But then I realized one thing: if I did start when I was 18, I did not have the knowledge or the experience that I had that I can talk about now. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I may have this experience, but I won't have the knowledge of how to, work things around, or I wouldn't have the knowledge, the experiences that I want to just talk about. Like, when I traveled to England, or, when I went to the airport and I saw a condom machine in the airport, and I mean, make a joke about that, because I've never seen that in Kuala Lumpur. Condom machine, really? It's you've never seen that before, and somehow in curry flavor. Who has curry flavor condoms? So,
That's really funny. Wow.
no, it is. No, I swear to God, 17 years old, I walked into Heathrow Airport. I walked into the bathroom of the airport and they were selling condoms. I was like, how many people are getting laid in an airport bathroom right now? And I looked at it, and they had three flavors: chocolate, banana, which is basic, two flavors that are redundant, and curry. And I was thinking to myself, is this mutton curry or is this chicken curry? Which, as an Indian, I am more worried about the flavor of the curry than the actual condom being in curry flavor.
Wow. So one quick thing I want to ask you on the same note is that, one of the chapters in my book talks about money and the
Mhm.
mindset we have with money. Because,
Yeah.
so many times, like, there comes a time when something that you want to do is going to be your passion, it's going to make you happier, but it's going
Right.
to give you less money. And something else is going to give you more money, and it's probably going to take away some of your joy. So when was the decision when you took that, okay, now you will be a stand-up comic and marine engineering will take a back seat, as a part-time marine engineer and a full-time comic rather than the other way around? And at that point in time, were you still making much more money in marine engineering, or stand-up comic money had begun to sort of match what you were
Well,
making in engineering?
actually, to be fair, I was making a lot of money when I was a marine engineer, when I was working offshore, right? But however, I could never have had a career in stand-up comedy or in any form of entertainment. I honestly, it wasn't stand-up comedy that was my passion. It was arts. I wanted to do something in the arts, right? I wanted to sing, I wanted to dance. I can't do neither. So, stand-up comedy was the compromise. And the thing was, I was working offshore and I hated it. I hated working offshore, but I got paid a lot of money. They were easily, I was making like, 20,000 ringgit, which is a lot of money, which is about, it's lakhs in India. And it was weird because I realized that I was trying to compensate my happiness for money. I was basically, what I was doing was I was making a ton of money on when I was on board the ship. And then as soon as I got off the ship, so basically what happens in offshore is that I work for 4 months and then I'm off for 2 months, right? I'm home for 2 months and then I'm back 4 months. So in that 2 months I'm off, I spent all my money. In fact, not only did I spend all my money, I got into debt, right? So basically I would make a lot of money. I would, in that 2 months, I would rent a Ferrari. No, I'm not even kidding. I would do that kind of stuff. I would drive to a club and I would buy the whole liquor cabinet. And basically, I lived my life as a young kid. Basically, I was 21 years old, earning a lot of money, and I was compensating money for happiness. And I was thinking that if I had money, I would be happy, right? But the thing was, I realized about 4 or 5 years down the line that, yeah, I'm not going to be happy like this. So that's when as I said, I started stand-up comedy when I was 26, and I could never have started if I was still in oil and gas. So I left oil and gas, and I started at the bottom of the ladder as a mechanical engineer. So I was making maybe 10 times less money when I left marine engineering. And basically, I had to stop at the bottom of the level as a mechanical engineer and then work my way up again slowly over the next 8 years. And then I quit engineering to do stand-up comedy full time.
But were there any times where you felt that this is the decision you have not taken, and going back to that? Because for me, I was an entrepreneur. I left the
Right.
family business, a lot of money in the family business, and started an entrepreneurship venture. And it's tough, right? Because when you're following your passion, it's tough. And so many times you come home where nobody has laughed at your jokes, or I have lost money, and you come home that, did I do this? What did I do this for? So what has been your experiences?
No, I mean, look, this whole pandemic, this whole time that we have, this whole year basically is a complete write-off. And for someone who has I'm a full-time stand-up comedian now. It's difficult. It's very hard for me to, kind of look at myself and go, should I go back to engineering? I still got my degree somewhere. I'm sure I've kept it in a file somewhere. I don't know where it is, but I'm sure if I look hard enough, I'll find it and maybe put my, profile up on LinkedIn, and, maybe someone might hire me, and maybe, hey, who knows, the boss could be a fan and give me a good salary instead. But no, I mean, at the end of the day, I still look at it as it's a journey that I have to go through to get to where I want to be, right? And I've look, there is multiple times, so many times that if you ask me if I've regretted it, yes. There's a lot of times where I think to myself, like, this, I'm never gonna make it. I'm never gonna do this, but I always push through. That is the thing. But I realized that, as a performer, it's hard for me because I go through depression as well. And depression is something where, you're not happy, right? And it's not your fault. It's a chemical thing. But however, you feel shit about yourself. You feel really bad about yourself. You feel really bad about the choices you make, or whether it's right or it's wrong. You feel bad about it. And so many times I've got medication for it. I obviously, antidepressants, which is a double-edged sword, because antidepressants makes me less sad, but it doesn't make me more happy. Neither. And also, as a creative, it makes me less creative. So it takes away one thing, but it takes away a lot of other things as well. So at the end of the day, I realized that the only way for me to realize that I need to move on is to accept everything that is happening, or everything that is this. And it works in so many ways, right? Like, I remember when I was in school, I had trouble in school because I had dyslexia. And in this was in the 90s in Kuala Lumpur, where nobody knew how to spell dyslexia, let alone know what it was. And I remember all my teachers, my parents, my aunties and uncles, everybody just thought I was just stupid, right? And basically, I was doing really badly at school. And I remember when I was 14 years old, and this is like, for up to 14 years old, I was in the last class. I was the Buddhu student who was, in the last class. When they give me a test, I'm like, yeah, whatever, right? And then at 14 years old, my teacher realized that there was a problem with my learning and not my application, because she knew I could speak well. I just couldn't read or write well. And she just decided to put me through this whole, for the next 4 months. I remember she put me through this whole. She just gave me a bunch of cards, and she said, just remember the images on the cards. And then I had to draw it out. So basically, she did a test to 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 test my brain on how it works, right? And then she realized that I learn more on images than I do on words. So then that's when it started, right? She gave me cue cards, how to read, and eventually that became my cornerstone. And at 14, 15 years old, I started, getting straight A's. Suddenly, my parents were shocked. They thought I was copying off someone, right? They thought I was copying off the smart kid. And, at that point, I felt good about myself. And it taught me something, which I realized that if I just accepted the fact that I had something that was blocking me from learning as well as I could, I would have been much more happier the last 14 years, right? And also, there's one thing that she taught me: understand why, don't understand how. because maths, every time we try to understand, you know, how to do addition, how to do multiplication, right? But nobody teaches you why you need to do multiplication, why you need to do addition. Nobody teaches you why a formula works in certain ways. They only teach you how it works, right? Like, you know, if they teach you about an engine, they teach you how an engine works, but nobody teaches you why an engine works. So instead of understanding how, you understand why. And in that same vein, if you understand why you go through certain things, and you understand why you made certain decisions, and you understand why that you've gone through those things, particularly instead of how you've gone through those things, you understand that, look, you you understand that, you know, happiness doesn't come from your choices. Happiness comes from what you make of those choices of yourself. So yeah, and, you know, like sometimes, like I remember right after my Netflix special, I needed to write an hour special, and it was very difficult because my Netflix special was a surprise. It came as a surprise to me as well, and I threw everything, all the good material I had, all the good jokes I had, I threw it there. Right now, I had nothing. Right, and in 3 months, I had to write a whole new 1 hour set for my show that was going to happen, you know, in 3 months time. And I realized that I was struggling to write material, and I was going through depression. I was feeling sad. I was feeling, you know, like, what is going on? And then I realized that I didn't take my own advice because I didn't understand how. I didn't understand. I tried to write based on how I wrote before. I didn't understand why I wrote what I wrote before. So I did, then eventually I started accepting, look, this is how I write things. This is how I come up with material. And this is why the material came out the way it is. And, you know, eventually I got my 1 hour and I did it again. And, you know, eventually networks do like it. Comedy Central came up to me and said, "Hey, we want to buy that instead." So yeah, and then I went on Comedy Central as well, and then on BBC, and then on, you know, certain things. And I thought, like, you know, nothing could be better than what I've done before. No, you can always do as long as you understand why and not the how.
In fact, the bit I wrote was about 8 minutes, and I realized that, hours and hours and hours of work gets condensed to 8 minutes. And if you're writing 1 hour of material, it's probably thousands of pages. Because you realize that so much content. You
Yep.
8 minutes, you need so much content. It's only when you write a bit and you start performing it, you realize how difficult the job is to
Right.
create like 1 hour of material. It probably takes a decade to create a 1 hour of material per se.
It does, you know. I mean, you know, the thing is, you try to create, you always try to one up yourself in a way. Like, you know, you will create something, and then you would think that the next thing you create has to be better than the second one, the first one, right? And then you create that, and then suddenly the next one, like, okay, let's say a singer, right? She, you know, singer makes an album. The album is great, sells worldwide. Now that person has to make another album, and it has to be better. It can't be worse. Like, you know, then you will fall into oblivion. So what do? Like, you know, and then you stress yourself. You know, oh no, I have to do this. And the thing is, the secret, I guess, is just understanding and accepting how you do you.
In fact, one of the theories that I'm trying to sort of communicate through this book is that somebody asked me that, do you want to make people happy? I said, no, I don't want to make people happy, but I just want to make people happier, because there is no quantum you can say, okay, this person can be made permanently happy. So basically, the challenge is, right, a lot of people don't understand that 50% of your happiness and your mindset depends on your genetics. So some people are just born in a way with that positive, optimistic mindset. So they're just going to be happier than remaining 50%. Out of 40% of that is sort of your mindset, which is the book is about. That how do we actually change or attempt to change the mindset in 10% circumstances. So you win a lottery, you break your leg, that's only 10%. So only 10% of your happiness is dependent on circumstances. So what we're trying to do as a muscle is that you have a baseline. You're an optimistic person, you could be 80 on 100. I'm a realistic person, I could be 60 on 100. Then a positive or negative event may happen in our lives, and we'll go up and down. but we'll come back to our baseline in the next 6 to 8 months. So how do we increase that baseline? How do we make that 80 to 82? So you come back to 82. And the eventual goal obviously is that how do you make your natural state of mind as 90, 95, 100, when you actually become one with God and in the Indian context achieve nirvana. If you can take your baseline to 100, that means that's your state of bliss all the time. If you feel pain, it may come down to 95, but you come back to 100 eventually, right? So that's the goal we're looking at. And a lot of people don't understand happiness, that some of these things have to be done, right? So if you, so the actions are universal. So if you exercise, you sleep, you show generosity and gratefulness every day, you will be happier. But the other things, following your purpose or trusting everyone or money, relation with money, all those are not universal. Every person who trusts everyone will not be happier because it's individual, right? I have this belief that I trust everyone, and it has led to a lot of oxytocin in my life and a lot of happiness all around because I just trust everyone. But that may not be the case with everybody, right? So everybody has to treat their lives differently. So one quick thing I wanted to ask you about was uh, your views on how do we make ourselves happier. So so every person I spoke to, they came up with some mental models they've had. So when you face tough times and uh, there are some things that we all end up doing, right? So one of my friends said that I'm, let's say, an iPhone. I'm iPhone 11 right now. When 12 comes out, his name is Vishal Gondal. He runs very successful entrepreneurship company called Goki in India. But he said that, I see what improvements have I made to myself before the 12 comes out. Another friend of mine said that if I have an interpersonal relationship conflict or some strain, I solve it immediately. I don't even let it fester for a day, because once it festers for a day, it's impossible to solve it, right? So every person has these tenets because of which they have found their peace. They say the happiness is overrated and peace of mind is underrated. So I would love to pick your brains on any mental models of beliefs you have, which has helped you bounce back, made you more at peace with yourself, uh,
Right.
helped you find your calling.
I think, you know, I don't know if I can call this a model, because I'm not, it sounds very methodical. Like, a lot of people think very methodically. Like, I need to do this, this, and this for me to become happier. I need to do this and this and this for me to become happier. For me, I'm more of a child of chaos. Like, I don't plan anything. I've never, like, for me, the biggest disappointment is that when I plan for something and it doesn't happen, I get disappointed. I disappoint myself, I disappoint everybody around me, and it becomes a thing where I think to myself, like, oh no, this is how it works. For me, I am a I think I am a child of chaos, where I don't plan anything. I've never planned a long term future. I've always planned short term. Like, okay, like, this is what I need to do today. This is what I need to do tomorrow. And maybe this is what I need to do this week. Right. And then slowly that leads me towards where I want to be. I know subconsciously, every one of us subconsciously know where we want to do, what we want to do, how we want to be happy. For some people, money is happiness. That's the other thing I want to ask you. Is money happiness? Is money something that, a lot of people say, money is not happiness. It's so much easier to cry in a Ferrari, right? And it's one of those things where, it's not happiness, but it sure does help. So, a lot of people think like, oh no, I remember a lot of business friends of mine who are businessmen, and they always tell me like, you have to think of short-term goals, long-term goals. You need to have a dream map in your house with all the things that you want, so that you can achieve those. I'm like, no. they, every time I look at, every time, like, a lot of startup companies, and a lot of my friends who do startup companies, they have this dream board, right? And when their startup fails, basically their dream board is their failure. It's basically a framed picture of their failures. Like, I failed to get this, I failed to get this, I failed to get this. Right? For me, that would be so much this thing. So I believe my method if anything, is just accepting everything that happens as a good thing, even if it's bad, even if it's, even if it's like I didn't get that job, right? Accepting it is the first step towards your own happiness. Accepting that you didn't get the job, accepting that you didn't get the job because it's not, what, and how you can learn from it and work forward to, kind of just, okay, I'll get the next job, it's fine. I don't have, I'm not gonna dwell into this because I can get the next job. Or if I didn't get this girlfriend, for instance, right? There must, accepting that fact that I didn't get this, I didn't get what I wanted, and there's a reason why I didn't get what I wanted. And what was that reason? Let's work towards the next one, and try not to make the same mistakes again.
But I think, Kevin, I absolutely agree with you, right? I think so many times these goals people set actually becomes a reason for their unhappiness. So I have a very similar philosophy that instead of setting goals, I think you should walk in the right direction. So let's say, suppose you have a goal of, reading 50 books.
Right.
And then reading half an hour every day, 5 days a week, is going to help you accomplish that goal. So you just set a schedule of reading half an hour every day. When I want to write this book, I scheduled 1.5 hours with my ghostwriter once a week, right? So I did 3 months, 4 months of 1.5 hour conversation with her every single week. And now I'm at 40,000 words ready with the book, right? The first draft of the book. So I think a lot of times people make these mistakes of having these stupid dream boards with having a Ferrari there, right? So the challenge is that a lot of times, so I have so if you take research on money, right? Money starts off with when you make $10,000 a year and you start making $20,000, you will be significantly more happier. When you reach $40,000, you'll be significantly more happier. Then you reach $80,000, you'll be significantly more happier. But after you reach that magic number, globally they have done purchase parity calculations about $75,000 odd dollars, right? Once you reach that magic number of $75,000, then incremental increase in money does not increase your happiness much more. So what I did was that I actually created a new framework, is one of my chapters in a book about money, but it says that every single experience that I have in my life today, every single physical material object that I have in my life today, either I don't upgrade it, but if I do upgrade it, it has to be 4 times better or more expensive than my previous object. So if I take a vacation as $2,500, my next vacation, I'll attempt it at either the same at $2,500 or it has to be $10,000. I cannot ever plan a $5,000 vacation. If I have a car which is $20,000, then either I have to go for an $80,000, $100,000 car, and then the next has to be $400,000 car, but I can't buy a $20,000 car more when I own a $100,000 car already. So every single thing in my life, it's either upgraded 4x or I stay where I am. So what it does is it cuts down this concept of hedonic adaptation. When you buy something incrementally better, it's like, you don't even notice that thing changed. But when you buy something significantly better, then even after 1 or 2 years, you appreciate because the change is so dramatic. So every single thing, and it also makes your decision more purposeful. It also, gives you this confidence, right? When you look around, if you're looking at a Ferrari that I don't have, I look around something, it's 4x of what I have, something else 16x of what I used to have, something else is 128x of what I used to have. So everywhere I see success instead of failure. Right. But if I just had that dream board with a private jet and a Ferrari and a 120-foot yacht, then I would be failure all around, right? But my life would have upgraded significantly in the last 20 years, but still my dream board would be a failure. So I've actually found this 4x philosophy of money that I call it, which has found a lot of peace of mind, because even when I'm going through tough phases in my life, I don't end up upgrading 4x, but I have a buffer for everything. So I never have to downgrade anything. Everything, there is a buffer. So it's almost like a way to save money rather than spend monies. But everything I upgrade in my life, I actually know what my next is going to be. My next watch is going to be, my next car is going to be, everything is there. So there is this dream board somewhere, but it's only for the next object of that thing. So if I'm eating a chocolate that costs $10, then I have this chocolate which is $40 and I want to eat someday. So then even as small as $30 increments allows me to fill up and tick mark one more item on my dream board. But
Right.
this is the way I have built my relationship with money. And it's almost like minimalism, but in a commercial sense, because, nobody wants to tell you that, you make a lot more money and then still is not going to give you happiness. So this is
Right.
my sort of a hack and my mental model and belief of finding happiness through money. So it's worked out so well so far.
I mean, it's easy for us to talk about money because I mean, I guess I'm in a position of my life, and you obviously are in a position on your life that money is not necessarily an issue. Where we can dream of 4 times or 16x times or that kind of stuff. We can. There are a lot of people out there you know who can't even think of their next meal, for instance, right? And the thing is, and the thing is, most of the times these are the people who are looking at us, looking up to us, and saying, how can happiness help me? Because I can't find happiness, and where can I find this happiness if I can't find this kind of dreams, even the small dreams? I can't afford this anymore. Then where do I go?
So, Kavin, if I really want to be brutally honest and give you a
Right,
frank answer, right? See, if you take the Maslow's laws, right? The
right,
laws of food, shelter, clothing, and security, right? Is the first three, four laws of Maslow, right? When can philosophy help you, right? Because this book we were trying to attempting to write, it's
uh-huh,
is philosophical, right? It is
right,
it is it is pursuing happiness, so which is
right,
more of a philosophical pursuit rather than a physical pursuit, right? So my belief is that if you have challenges with physical laws of Maslow, right? Food, shelter, and clothing, then my recommendation is don't read this book.
right,
Focus on your career, focus on studying, focus on anything that at least gives you food, shelter, and clothing.
right.
Because if
No,
you don't have food, shelter, and clothing, right, then finding happiness is going to
yeah.
be, it's going to be difficult, right? Because
No, no, of course, food, shelter, and clothing. I mean, basic
so
necessities. Yes, that's fine,
once you
right?
have the food, shelter, and clothing, then we can come to philosophy, right? So
Right,
now philosophy is that, okay, you have food, shelter, and clothing, and let's say you're very fond of chocolates, right? And now I'm just saying that instead of, let's say you generally buy a $2 chocolate,
right,
just resist the temptation of buying a $3 chocolate ever. Keep on
right,
waiting till the time you can afford an $8 chocolate and then buy the $8 chocolate. Then again, you resist the temptation of buying a $20 chocolate. There are chocolates that cost $100. You wait, and then go in for a $100 chocolate. It may take you 3 years to do this, 5 years to do this, or 3 months to do this. Doesn't matter. And you apply it to every single object that you have in your life. So
right,
whichever object you want to upgrade, resist the temptation of incrementally upgrading that object. Wait when you can afford a significantly higher, better object. It could be a holiday, it could be food, it could be car, it could be watch, it could be t-shirt. It'll also tell you priority in life, right? Let's say I'm happy with a $50 t-shirt. So basically what happens is I'm going to wear $50 t-shirts for the rest of my life. But for somebody else, clothing is very critical and they would want to buy a $100 t-shirt and a $500 t-shirt and a $1,000 t-shirt, right? So be it, right? They'll find priorities in their life. Like for me, music is important in my life. So I will always buy more expensive audio speakers. I have
right,
a Gamut M5, but I want to go for, BMW, and I'm going to go in for more and more better speakers till the time my 4X, 16X, 128X is reached, right? But I may be okay with a $50 t-shirt for the rest of my life because it's not critical. So it tells you your priorities. What are the things you want to save for? And what are the
right.
things you don't mind not upgrading for the rest of your life? So again, it's something which I've actually given a complete TEDx talk on this philosophy of money. So
Mm.
some of my parts of the chapters of the books are taking this 18-minute talk of TEDx on money can buy you happiness and translating it to how do you take it from a happiness point of view, right? So, uh, but again, I followed it 20 years, and
Right.
I still feel that I think single-handedly one of the most impactful things that has allowed me to find more happiness with money is actually this philosophy. Even today, I will never go and buy something which is not 4x better than what I have previously. So it makes you patiently ambitious, because it has to, you have to be very ambitious, but you have to be patiently ambitious, because buying a 4x house, my first 4x house took me 17 years to buy, right? So I had to be patient for 17 years. I could have incrementally bought a better house many times earlier, but buying it after 17 years, even after 5 years in the same house, I still feel that joy when I go up the walkway. I say like, wow, what a place that I'm living in, you know. But if I just incrementally kept on upgrading my house multiple times in 17 years, I would have not got that same joy today going up the driveway. So this is something which has been very useful to me.
Right. Here's another question I have, which is basically, you did say that, setting goals for yourself and stuff like that. Like reading 50 books, for instance. And I've always come to the belief that, uh, happiness is like a fart, right? It's like a fart. Everybody loves a fart, but if you force it, it will become shit, right? You will shit yourself. So if can you force happiness onto yourself? Like, for instance, you said read 50 books. I don't like reading books. Is that 50 books unhappiness going to make me happier in the long run? Or do I need to put myself through this whole unhappiness phase of my life to train myself to be happier?
So, Kavin, I think let's get this one thing straight, right? There is something called pleasure and there is something called peace of mind, right?
Right.
So many times. So let me give you an example of a sport. I play table tennis. I own a team in the in the in the elderly category of 39 plus. I actually won 2 silver medals in the nationals a couple of years ago, right? So I'm a national level player in the elderly category of 39 plus. But you know what happens is, right, winning that medal and playing in the nationals gives me a tremendous amount of joy.
Right.
But the process of preparing for it is painful, because you have to take the same serve and do it 1,000 times, do your drills, do your physical, eat healthier, not have alcohol for weeks and months at a time before your tournament. All that thing, right? It's painful, right? So the fact of the matter is, there are certain things that will give you long-term happiness, sustainable happiness. But it would mean that you'll have to make some sacrifices for that happiness. So let's take an example, right? And the other thing is, right, there are the actions that I talk about, they're actually very universal. So let's say if you exercise every day, you will be happier than people who don't exercise. So let me give you an example. The 10 million people who exercise every day or some kind of physical activities will be happier than people who don't exercise, because there is endorphins release, there is dopamine release, there is BDNF proteins. And in fact, antidepressant tablets have BDNF proteins, so they're released, right? So it'll be, people who exercise will be happier. If you don't sleep, right? 10 million people who don't sleep, 10 million people who sleep adequately. People who sleep adequately will be happier than people who don't sleep, right? If you're staying awake, and sleeping only 2 hours a night, if you take a 10-year period, people who sleep 6 to 8 hours every day will be happier than people who don't sleep, right? If let's say, if you meditate, right? People who meditate, 10 million of them who meditate, 10 million of people who don't, 10 million people who meditate will be happier. But this is all scientific, right? Because when you meditate, serotonin is produced, you get more control of your brain, you have more control over your emotions. Harvey in Suits says that it's not that I don't believe in emotions, I just don't believe in having them. So if you meditate every day, you will have more control over your emotions, you will be happier. But that is something which it's like, if you want to be fitter, then you need to control your diet, you need to exercise, you need to sleep well, right? You can't say, no, I'm not going to do these 3 things, but I'm going to be fitter. Like I'm going to be fitter, right? So it's not going to happen, right? So if you want to be happier, you have to do some of these actions. You have to sleep, you have to probably meditate, you have to exercise, you'll be happier. I'm not even talking about fitness. You'll have to exercise because it releases those chemicals to make you happier. But if you want to sustain happiness, along with the actions, you need to have some mental model, right? So let's say when you say, right, imagine, right, you got a chance to be on Comedy Central and they give you a 1 hour talk to be prepared. Now the thing
Right.
is, for that you had to listen to whether it's, so I've read books on Steve Martin and his first stand-up comedy book, and that, or I'm currently reading. Let me show you one more book. So this is what I'm reading right now. Jerry
Right.
Seinfeld, right? Is this anything, right? So the thing is that we may do things to basically become uh, uh, get that ultimate happiness of performing well on Comedy Central, right? So whatever it
Right.
takes, right? Because I'm sure that when you go with new material and in an open mic and you bomb, it's not a good feeling, right? But if you
No.
don't do that, right? You don't do that, then you're going to bomb in Netflix and Comedy Central. That's going to be a worse feeling. So
Yep.
I think it's important that not to have goals is not essential, but if you want to be better at what you do, right, you'll have to have some ways of improving yourself, whether it's through more open mics, whether it's through more content, is meeting other stand-up comics and, asking, is this anything? So you'll have to improve, right? Because if you keep on deteriorating for the rest of your life, then there are chances of you will not be happier than what you are today, right?
Right.
Only if you improve, then you're going to get happier, right? So you'll have to put some effort, and all that effort is going to be painful. It's not going to be happy. So effort is not easy, right? Because you have to do boring things in order to do exciting things for the rest of your life. One of the things in entrepreneurship that motivated me the most is a saying that entrepreneurs do a few things that most people won't, so they can then do things that most people can't.
Right.
Right? So one last question I have for you, Kevin, which is one of the book in my uh, chapters in my book, is this chapter called Trust.
Right.
Uh, Especially when people like you who travel a lot, meet a lot of cultures, a lot of nationalities all over the world. Like I have this chapter which says, I trust everyone. Now, what has been your experience and what is your framework and your belief on trust?
I think I think trust is one of the most important things to a human being. I think we we are naturally trusting species. We trust people. We trust. You see, but of course, everything comes with moderation, right? You can trust as much as you want, but everything comes in moderation. You eat fried chicken, just moderately. Don't eat the whole bucket. I kind of have the same thing. Like I trust people, but moderately. I trust, that like most of the time when I travel, when I do shows with certain comics, like let's say I go to Helsinki in Finland or I go to Russia, and they will always tell me, "Hey, look, come stay in my house, be fine," right? And I will trust them. I will go and stay in their house. The worst, that for me is this, because in so many ways I feel like I'm not putting my happiness in people's hands. That's as far as I trust someone, right? I will trust you as long as I'm not putting my happiness in your hands. If I'm putting my happiness or my well-being or uh, my mental health in your hands, then it becomes an issue. Like for me, I realized after a few times where I basically started a business with a few friends, and they've all failed, every single one of them, because money changes people somehow, right? People start getting greedy, people start doing this, and people start doing that. For me, it's like, look, I will trust you as much as I want to trust you, but in moderation, where I will I will trust you to a point where I can put certain things in your hands, but when it comes to my happiness or my moving forward, that I put on my own hands. And that's as far as trust goes with me. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah. So the way I have looked at it is that I trust everyone, but I agree with you that is always in moderation doesn't mean that because I trust everyone, I'm going to put my internet banking password on the internet, because I
Yeah.
trust everyone. So obviously, but the thing is, see, what I do is that I try to focus that every person has great intent till the time
Right.
they prove it otherwise. So when
Right.
somebody tells me anything, right, my first thought is never that what is in it for him and why is he doing this, and maybe he wants something out of me, or his intent may be not good for me, etc. My first reaction in my mind is that the intent is positive. I would never doubt his intent. Of course, some people may not be fair to me in over a period of time, but just by trusting everyone, I've also seen that some people who otherwise would have not been fair to other people, but they are fair to me because I trusted them. So I've so there is actually a very interesting chemical called oxytocin, which is produced when you are in trusted environment. And if you're in
Right.
a less trusted environment, then there is a chemical called cortisol that is produced. So I've seen that whether you're in a company, whether you're with friends, whether you're in family, if you have a lot of oxytocin, then you will have a beautiful relationship with everybody around. But if you have a lot of cortisol all the time and you're going to, be doubting the intent of your family members or your colleagues or your boss or your investors or anybody else, then you're going to be having this cortisol all around, and which is going to make you not perform at peak capacity, right? So in a nutshell, at least this philosophy I've seen now, whenever I even get some doubt on somebody's intent, I constantly remind myself that I'm never going to doubt a person's intent till the time they have done something to me which proves that intent otherwise. My first reaction is trust. And after that, we look at, okay, now could I continue the trust with that person? It depends on their behavior and their behavior with me.
I think I have the same, concept. I guess I trust people. I trust people left, right, center. People I haven't met. I've always thought of the best of human beings. Like I've never thought to myself like, oh, that guy's out to hurt me. Like, how you've heard stories. I always hear stories like this from people I know where, they're walking down the street and someone, accidentally bumps into them, and they turn around like, oh, you did that on purpose. I'm like, why would that person do it on purpose? He doesn't know who you are. You don't know who that person. There is no reason that person would come up to you and bump you for no reason, right? It was an accident, and you can accept that. Like I've never felt like that. Like I know people who do, and they constantly paranoid, and they constantly like, oh, this guy's trying to get me, and this guy's trying to get me. Or you always hear in a work environment where, oh, that guy is doing this because, he's trying to undermine me, or he's doing overtime because he's trying to get that promotion that I'm trying to get. And no, that person is just trying to do his work. That's how I feel. Like I always feel like, that the human beings inherently look out for themselves. They don't try to hurt anybody else to look out for themselves, but they look out for themselves. And here's the thing: sometimes by looking out for themselves, they're looking inward, so they're not looking outward on who they hurt or what they do to other people. So in that sense, they are not aware of what they are doing. And then, look, let's face it, I'm guilty of this. I'm pursuing my own source of happiness. And sometimes, in the meantime, I may hurt my family or my friends or someone who's close to me. And the thing is, I realize that I'm doing this unintentionally. I'm not saying, oh, I didn't talk to you because of, I didn't want to share this with you. I didn't talk to you because, I was looking inward, and this is, I was not looking outward at all. So yeah, so I always give them the benefit of doubt that human beings are inherently inward, and they will look, they're not aware of what's going on around them.
If they Sometimes they ask you, right? They say, what do you think of me? I say, I don't think of you. I've only thought about myself all the time. It's like, sounds great, yeah. So your name is pronounced as Kevin or Kavin? Kavin, right?
Kavin.
Kavin. So Kavin, this was wonderful, awesome conversation. Weber, you're most welcome to come back and share your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed the conversation too. But it
Oh,
was awesome.
absolutely.
This is
Thank
my
you.
first conversation with a stand-up comic. So thank you, Kavin, for
No worries.
being a part of this conversation.
Yes, Kavin, you are the first stand-up comedian in this series of Happiness is a Muscle. But since we also have had Vivek do open mics, do you remember your set?
My first ever
No,
set.
no, not you. Sorry, Vivek. Vivek, do you remember your set?
Yeah. So I remember my set. So basically,
Okay, so boys and girls, put your hands in the air and let's welcome the first comic of the evening, Vivek.
okay. So I'll tell you my set. So basically, uh, the set starts off with that. I grew up middle class, and you know, every single person who's grown up with less money has always had this daydream about making money. I'm not saying that they've dreamt of making money, because in dreams anything can happen. But when you're daydreaming, there is a surety of what's going to happen. You control the dream. In that dream, you make money, and then some or the other, by buying objects, you get respect. It's only when you buy some of these things you realize that you don't get any respect at all. So then you realize that you have to do things which rich people can't do. That buys you respect. And I discovered through hard experience that uh, they can buy everything, but you get a lot of respect from them when you lose weight. So, so when I had made money, I was eating better, having better alcohol. There was no way I was losing any weight. So then I started telling everybody that I used to be 150 kilos. So then even at 90 kilos, I started getting respect. But honestly, this whole routine actually is in Hindi, and
Right.
I was translating it in my mind. But in
Right.
Hindi, Vaibhav, it sounds much better, because he says that the whole thing is, it says like, respect milega per ghanta respect mila, and like that whole thing in
I
Hindi.
understand Hindi. I
Yeah.
understand Hindi. So
So
yeah, yeah. I can't speak it as well because there's an accent and
Kavin,
everybody laugh. So it's
sorry,
fine.
Kavin is half Punjabi. So at least do you know the profanities in Punjabi? Otherwise,
100%.
you cannot enter India at all.
100% I know. That's the first thing my grandmother taught me.
So, Kavin, can you give us a sneak peek of the new material that you're writing? Just a little, not too much, just a little.
It's basically about my weight loss, you know, journey that I'm going through right now, which is weird because so my wife put me on this thing called a keto diet, right? You know what a keto diet is? It's horrible because I found out the first rule of keto diet is you can't eat rice, and as an Indian, there's nothing more embarrassing than you cannot eat rice, because you can't tell your parents you don't eat rice anymore. There's no way to start a conversation with your Indian parents that you don't eat rice.
and
It's
then you say
easier for me to
roti bhi nahi, roti bhi nahi.
exactly. That was the second one, right? So there's no conversation I can have with my parents that I cannot have rice. It's in fact it's easier for me to come out as gay, right? And second of all, I can't eat bread. What kind of nonsense? I can't eat bread as an Indian. If I can't eat rice and I can't eat bread, I will be chased out the house.
Awesome.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Since I told you that I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask you questions from my side,
Sure.
I've realized something that all the three of us have in common. Our tragedy, are the pain of losing someone very close to us, and that making us think different. In Vivek's case, his dad; in your case, your brother; and in my case, my son. I lost my son when he was 3 months old, and it really took me down. I was traveling across the country and a few parts of the world, performing, having a great time, and then I stopped doing events. Because how can I make somebody happy when I'm not happy? But because I stopped working, and then I had like very little money left in the account, and I realized, oh, I have two more kids and I need to take care of them. So I started my YouTube journey. So we guys have actually taken perhaps our pain very strategically and done very good things out of it, because majority of us fail. I know people with one tragedy in their life, they don't want to do anything else. But I want to ask you, Kavin, first I'll start with you, Kavin. Losing your brother, a partner for about 30 plus years, and then was it because of, like, really because he kept saying that, what, start doing stand up, and you said screw it, yeah, he said it, let me just go ahead and start up stand up comedy. Was it really that reason that really motivated you to go and pick up the mic and fail, and then pick up the mic and fail, and then pick up the mic and make people happy?
Yes, it was that feeling that was, the thing was, he wanted me to do stand-up comedy, yes, but it's not because of him that I wanted to do stand-up comedy. That's not the reason. But the reason why I actually went up and did it was him, right? Because he taught me, with his passing, taught me that life is too short for me to not do it, right? Because my brother, just before he passed away, 2 months before he passed away, he said, "Hey, I'm turning 30. After my 30th birthday, I'm going for a medical checkup." And he never got to go to the medical checkup because 2 weeks before his birthday, he passed away. So, for me, I'm like thinking to myself, like, look, if I say that I'm going to do this 3 months from now, if I'm going to say that, okay, you know what, I'm going to do something to change my life, but I'm only going to do it 6 months from now, right? Then I could get hit by a bus tomorrow, and that will never happen. And I will never know personally how it felt for me to do that. Like I know for a fact my brother and I were very similar in the sense that we put everything forward. We were like, now my 2 more months we'll do it. Or now let me just enjoy my life now. And then maybe 3 months later we'll think about that. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, is my brother's favorite words. Right. And I realized that there's a lot of bridges that my brother didn't get to cross. And look, I'm not a religious person, I'm not a spiritual person, or I don't believe in, like, what happens after death. But I believe that also the fact that in life, I believe my brother was never satisfied because he never did all those things that he did. He thought, he wanted to do. So I don't want to feel like that. I always wanted to feel like, I wanted to do something, I did it. If I failed in it, yeah, at least I did.
So has that incident made you more proactive in life and stop procrastinating?
Yes, it has made me more, but sometimes, I lose touch. Sometimes, I I still procrastinate. I still do. But I try to do it with the smaller things rather than the bigger things now. Like the bigger things, if I needed something to change my life, yeah, I'll do it now. I'll do it tomorrow. Like, I'm terrified of heights. But I remember I thought to myself, hey, I should go bungee jumping. And guess what? I think 3 days later, I went bungee jumping. It was the worst thing I have ever done in my entire life because I'm so scared of heights. And it was the worst thing. People pushed me off the bridge. They were so fed up of me hanging on to the side of the bridge that they just pushed me off and said, "You know what? Sue us. It's fine." So, and and I never did it again, right? But I will never have that regret that I can say to myself, like, wow, I've never done that because I'm scared. No, I've done it. I'm scared. I don't want to do it again.
Amazing. Vivek ji, please tell me, do you think that really, tragedy changes us for the good? Because, perhaps you understood the real importance of happiness when unfortunately your dad was on the deathbed. Um, what really, were the thoughts going out in your mind at that particular day in the hospital?
So, Vaibhav, see, Aliu, I think when tragedy happens to you directly, right, uh, it does have an impact on you. But the fact of the matter is that I think it's very important for us to not wait for a tragedy to strike us and make these changes even without that happening to us. So let's put it this way, right? There'll be somebody who's listening to this interview, but they can hear the experience you've gone through. They can go through the experience that Kavin has gone through. They can go through the experience that I've gone through and say that, life is too short. Is this some passion that we have in our lives which we've ignored? right? And can we come back to it? They don't need for the weight for the tragedy to strike them. So that's, I think, the biggest change that I think people should make is that the reason we're writing this book, we're doing these interviews, is that hopefully by listening to some of these conversations, people can do some things which doesn't have to be driven by their own experience. They can be driven by somebody else's experience, right? And I feel that some of these passions in India, uh, I believe that there is this word we use in India is called getting settled. I think it is the worst disease uh, that has come in this world of most Indian families and parents, where as soon as the child attains puberty, they are told that, now please give up everything you loved in your life, whether it was stand-up comedy, whether it was table tennis in my case or whatever, and now you have to go on this quest of getting settled. And you think that when you complete your studies, that's fine, getting settled would get over. I said no. Then what happens is that you get a job, then you get married, then you think, okay, finally you'll have kids, then getting settled is done, right? It's no, because they tell you then who's going to get your kids married. And you don't realize at the age of at 15 that this getting settled is going to go on till the time you're 90. And I think leaving all your passions behind, I think a lot of people in India live sort of incomplete lives. For me, I was lucky. Uh, one of my friends got stuck in India because of some visa issues of the US consulate, and we started playing table tennis back in again. But I left the sport for 15 years. After 15 years, I got back to the sport. It is the best thing that happened to me because first thing is it made me a better me. I go to the office with a stride in my step because it's a very fast sport. I want to accomplish more things. I'm happier during the day. I have now this new group of friends which are from different stratas of society and life, but they are all table tennis players. We go and play world championships in different locations once every 2 years. So I think coming back to table tennis has been such an awesome experience for me. But I was lucky that I was able to come back to my passion. I wish that every person who listens to the interview finds this one passion they left when they were in their teens because their parents forced them to get settled. And now, hopefully, they're settled when they've crossed this other side of 35 or whatever the age is. And they can come back to that passion. But I can tell you that that will improve their happiness and make them happier than what they are today for sure.
Absolutely. He also has a brilliant talk on being settled. I'm going to link that below. If you want to watch it because when I heard it for the first time, I wanted to call up Vivek and tell him, Sir, kya bola hai? I've actually spoken for all the youngsters out there and, getting settled down, matlab, thanda. And, in today's world, you need to be active, you need to be dynamic and not settle down. So never settle, be active, keep going on and achieve what you really want to achieve. And let's take this as a sign because success leaves clues. We have two very successful people on the screen and they have left clues. The first clue that Vivek has left is please go ahead and start something that you perhaps left when you were 15 or 16, parents' pressure or teachers' pressure. Go ahead, start that. Start feeling young once again. And from Kavin, we learned that do not procrastinate. Go live your life every moment because you may never know what's in store for you ahead. So go ahead and live your life to the fullest. Please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, share the videos with your other friends. And thank you for watching this. My name is Vaibhav Ali, that's Vivek Bhargava and Kavin J signing off. Thank you. Thank you, guys. So one more thing, since today is also the International Men's Day, can we do a small snippet and then I'll edit it and we'll post it on our respective social media handles. Can we take a message from you, Kavin, on International Men's Day?
Okay. Just what do you want me to say? Happy International Men's Day. And
okay, so let me ask you this question. So, Kavin and Vivek, today is International Men's Day. What do you think is the real definition of a man?
Wow, a real definition of a man, I would say, is a person who takes care of himself. That's a definition of a man. That's not, I'm not talking about physicality. I'm not talking about physically taking care of himself, or he just takes care of himself. That's the definition of a man.
It might sound very simple, but it's indeed deep. Vivek, आपके पास आएंगे. आप please बताइए, what do you think are the real qualities that a man should possess?
Actually, I think Kavin has hit it bang on. I think even though it sounds very, very selfish, but I think in general, men have this personality of being selfish, and they look after their own happiness. And because of that, hopefully, they end up creating more happiness around them. But I feel that so many times, a lot of people make tremendous amount of sacrifices to make everybody else happy. They become miserable, and most cases end up making others miserable too. So if you want to man up, just be selfish and be happier. You'll make everybody else around you happier.
Super. And don't forget to be chivalrous. Open the door for the lady who's with you and do pull the chair across, because chivalry is not dead. Chivalry is still noted and has lots of perks. So thank you, everyone, and wishing you all an very happy, very exciting International Men's Day. Super.
Okay, my friend.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kavin.
Thank you.
Lovely, man. Thank you so much.
See you guys.
Bye, Kavin. I'll call you.